All right, so hey, how we doing? Harmless, Robby Rowe. Our season's over, and we are on the drive home. So New York to California, just a decent opportunity to hop back on the mic, hop back on the camera, and just go over some of the things. I know a lot of people have reached out. Just to specify, I'll be doing a separate video on my own time pertaining to my personal performance during the season. So that will be at another time. This won't be that. It's talking about like my pitching coach experience and how I envisioned it going and how it actually went, things that went good, things that like I learned that I could do better moving forward. So this was my first season doing more of a pitching coach role. Previous seasons, I've done like pitching coach style roles, but without the actual title. Like I wasn't going out and doing mound visits. I was more just working with the guys that wanted to get to work during, catch plays or practice days, more of the stuff in the shadows type thing. And then, like I said, this was my first time actually having the actual title, little things too that I didn't even realize that I was going to have to be doing that like were the biggest kind of surprise, like getting walkie-talkies to communicate with the bullpen during the game, doing game charts each and every game. I knew I was going to do the mound visits, but I really didn't like think about what was said during mound visits and what needed to be said. We can talk about that because I know a lot of people reach out and want to know that particular dynamic, like what is said during mound visits. So we'll do a separate video on that at some point in the near future. But there was a lot. I'll be completely honest, when I first accepted the pitching coach role, I knew it was going to be a lot of work, but I didn't know it was going to be as much of work as it actually turned out to be. Probably part and due to my fault, because if I attempt to do something, I'm going to go all in on it. Like I can't just do anything, at 50%. So just little things like wanting to, catch every bullpen. I wanted to, play catch 3 times a day with guys, holy smokes, with guys that didn't have a throwing partner, for like doing video work with guys that wanted to look at their outings and talk about sequencing and just stuff like that. Like I had very little time to really do all of the things that I wanted to do, but we did the best that we could do. And like I said, like the little things, like having the ability to run and communicate with your bullpen, because like the starting pitching stuff is pretty simple, right? Like you get with your manager, you talk about like who do you want going this series, and you basically have 5, maybe 6 starters throughout the course of a season. I think at the end of our season we had 4, but it was like you just go in order. But the bullpen's a different story. You got to identify like which guys in the bullpen do better when they kind of expect and know when they're pitching, and which guys don't want to know when they're pitching. So once you kind of identify that, you can go throughout the course of the season and really tailor your approach towards those guys, just because you want to get the best, you want to get the best version of themselves, and it's kind of your responsibility as a pitching coach to figure that out. And then like the whole thing that I didn't even realize before we came out here was the dynamic of like playing matchups when it comes to getting guys in the game, like from the bullpen, understanding when is the appropriate time to take the starter out, where are we at in the lineup. Like there's a lot of little intangibles in the game of baseball that I know I kind of try to market a lot of times on my channels, but it's a really cool opportunity to be able to see that in real time, just to notice like there's so many things going on in the course of a game, especially in the later innings, that you have to be cognizant about. When to take your mound visits. We get 6 mound visits, whether it be the catcher going out not to talk about signs, or the pitching coach or manager going out to talk, not counting a pitching change. So like being really sure like when to take your mound visits, understanding which guys on your staff, need mound visits at what time, like when they're tired, what their tell signs are. What else? Like the matchups things, like understanding the other team's lineup, kind of doing more so. And this was the tough part for me, I'll be honest, was like as a pitcher, I don't like to do scouting reports. I think it takes me away from my attack plan, my approach as a pitcher, and I start to really kind of over-articulate too much on the mound. And I've talked about in the past how I don't do well when I do that. But as a pitching coach, like that's something that you kind of need to do going into each and every series, right? Like understanding which hitters in the lineup that you know, in their last 10 games are hitting the cover off the ball, and what hitters aren't. Not going so much to like the traditional standard scouting report by just looking at like the roster and going to the batting average leaders, going to the home run leaders on that team, and just going, okay, this guy's dangerous. No, like it's more in depth than that. Like, what are they doing in their previous games, right? Their last series, how'd they do in their last 10 games against, you know, a righty, against a lefty, against a submarine guy, against a guy throwing under 90 guy versus a guy throwing over 90, like figuring out in your bullpen, you know, who's guys that are going to have better opportunities to get guys out in the opposing lineup with the particular stuff that they have. My first experience with all of that stuff, so a lot of it was like learning as I go, and I take a lot of pride in, you know, doing my job to the highest standard, but I didn't realize it was going to be like that much. And to be completely honest, I love the fact that it was a lot, and I love the fact that like every single game, every time I show up to the field knowing there's a game that day, like I have to be locked in. Like as a starter, you know, as like a starting pitcher where you're just a player, there's games where you can 100% show up and be like, all right, I just pitched yesterday, like I'm checked out, like whatever. So I love the fact that like I had to be locked in every game, and I love the little inner games, the inner battles. But I will say, all that being said, that and I know a lot of people are going to take this as an excuse, but it was a lot each and every day that I think took away from my ability to spend time on my own personal development, especially during a season in which that I faced my own personal struggles. So the question obviously is going to be like, would you do it again? And I think I would. Because I love chaos. I love like the hectic schedule. I love doing a lot of things, but I would figure out better routines, better daily things, I guess you would call them, that I could find time to get my work that I needed to get done to make sure that I was prepared for my outing, like make sure that box is being checked, as opposed to like I get caught up sometimes during the season where it's like, all right, this person needs this work, this person needs that work. Like they're going to take priority over me as a coach, obviously. So, all right, well, that's my take.